Good evening, campers. It's Friday night. It's Freedom Night in Melbourne town. I hope a whole bunch of you have headed off out on the town, or you've gone and done something with your family and friends. Team, it's Andy here. I said I'd be here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and that I will be for the Professional Human Series, sponsored by Anywhere Auctions. Thank you so much to those guys for supporting us all of the way. Team, before I carry on, just a little one on Anywhere Auctions. Keep an eye out for a charity auction that's making its way through. I think it's going to be scheduled around the start of December. But the item that we're going to be auctioning off for charity is going to be an absolute ripper. It's going to be a one-of-a-kind item that any salesperson or auctioneer will want to get their hands on. No word of a lie. It's amazingly cool. All the money is going to go to the Royal Children's Hospital. Keep your eye out for it because it's going to be an absolute barnstormer of an auction. It's going to be a ripper. Keep your eyes peeled. Now, team, first things first, how good are you feeling out of 10? And more importantly, I want to ask this question. How much have you got to be grateful for out of 10? Obviously, like I said, me being in Melbourne and this being Freedom Day to a greater degree, there's an opportunity here to just to reflect a little bit on the last 264 days of being incarcerated or whatever you want to call it, right? But around the country, I want to ask this question because things are really starting to pick up a real head of steam across the board. And the real risk of that is that we lose sight of the things that we're really grateful for, right? The really, really important stuff. So I just wanted you to just check in with yourselves with this just for a moment and ask yourselves, how much have you got to be grateful for out of 10? And then while you're there, secondary question, what is it that you have to be grateful for? It's something that I know that, again, I keep referring to my mentor friend, Rick Rushton, because I do owe a bit to him, to be fair. And it's like a life sheet of his. One of the things that he has on there, these 3 things I'm going to be grateful for, and these 3 things I'm always grateful for. And it's really, actually, really important that we do pay attention to that, all right? Because the temptation, and I'm going to talk about another temptation in a minute, but there's a temptation to just keep running forward for hell or high water and just losing sight of what we really do need to be grateful for in life. All right, team. And one of the big things that we need to be grateful for is our relationships with our family and our friends. So make sure you're always checking in with your friends, team. Make sure you're always checking in with your friends. Now, talking about temptation, over promising. It's a serious temptation, team, and it's one that I've experienced recently as a consumer. And the reason why I call it a temptation is because of the fact that for lots of us, in many aspects of our life, right, we're not just talking about business here. We're talking about our relationships, our friendships. We're talking about our social lives. We're talking about things that we enjoy doing and all that sort of stuff, right? Because we're trying to make up for lost ground so much right now in whichever facet of our lives that we're talking about or we're thinking about, there's a real risk and a real temptation of getting caught up in the enthusiasm of wanting to catch up. And as a result of that, we tend to let promises that we're not sure we can keep just fall out of our mouths. Now, sometimes people do it fully intentionally, and that's just stupid, right? But for a lot of us, we do it from it can a lot of the time be done from a place of genuine desire to help, from a place of authentic sort of, generosity in terms of our will and our time and our energy and our focus. But the reality is, team, in a lot of cases, sometimes overpromising can cause you so many more issues down the track. I'm not saying sometimes, I mean all the time. And the thing is, a lot of the time in certain parts of our relationships, that overpromising might not feel like it's caused too much damage initially, but we don't know the long-term damage that it can be causing. So when we're talking about short-term gain and long-term pain, what does that sort of look like and feel like from an overpromising point of view? Now, with overpromising, the problem that we have is that when we do make these promises, we get a bit of an endorphin rush. We make ourselves feel good because we're promising to do things for someone else, right? Or for something else. Yeah. That gives us a natural kick of happy chemicals that for a lot of us, we've been lacking in, we've been missing, we've been starved of with everything that's been going on, right? There's so much, non-positivity kicking around, still. And the temptation when you've got an opportunity to promise to do something, you can feel your brain just wanting to just do it because of the fact that it needs that kick of endorphin rush. It needs that melatonin, right? It needs that buzz that it's been missing for so long. But obviously, team, that short-term success is a bit like taking drugs and stuff, right? Because that's essentially what we're mucking around with when we're taking drugs or getting pissed or whatever the case may be. This is a very, very natural drug that we can get addicted to if we're not careful. And the problem is, if you're promising the world and then not delivering on those promises, relationships can be damaged permanently. Now, we're not just talking about business, team. We're talking about our kids, for example. Now, for a lot of us, we've not been able to deliver our kids any sort of experiences in any way, shape, or form. I mean, my boy spent more of his life in lockdown than he has alive, for God's sake, right? So the temptation for me as a dad is to promise to go do this, to go do that. Let's go do this together, son, blah, 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 and get really caught up in the excitement of what is available to us now, right? That's a real temptation. And it's one thing that I'm really working on making sure that I'm aware of, because it's not like I don't want to enjoy time with my son, for example. But at the same time, I don't want to tell him that we're going to be able to do stuff and then not be able to deliver on it. Right? Because my challenge for the rest of this year, for example, and I'm just using myself as an example here, my challenge for the rest of this year is I'm pretty much going to be working, operating, functioning. I'm not going to say working because a lot of it's a lot of fun anyway. 7 days a week because of everything that's going on. Auction Saturday, Sunday, the National Gig, Central 21, Better Homes and Gardens. I've got lots to do over the course of the rest of this year, right? Not complaining in any way, shape, or form. Super, super grateful to be in that position. It's nice to feel wanted, I keep saying. But at the same time, team, I've got to be very, very aware of that when I'm talking to my kids. Right? Now when we go back to that top question that I asked, what are we grateful for out of 10? I'm so ridiculously grateful for my kids. But I need to make sure, right, that I'm not just promising them things in the short term without considering whether it's actually going to be deliverable in the long term. Now, I have done this. One big example that really sort of explained this to me and sort of, highlighted this to me was a promise that I made to Eliza. And this was a couple of summers ago. And I promised her that we'd make a lemonade stand, right? And we painted the sign and we knew what we were going to do. And I've got a little bit of business education there for her. And, we're talking about building a Facebook. I've actually got an unlisted Facebook page for Eliza's lemonade stand, right? Now, not long after we did that, COVID hit massively. And it's because this was the start of last year. And as a result of that, I couldn't deliver on the promise that I made to her about me and her going into this little business that was a lemonade stand. And after that, and look, I know that it wasn't necessarily my fault as such, but at the same time, I kind of felt that it was because I dragged my heels a little bit on that. And then COVID hit and took the situation out of my hands anyway. But could I have picked up the pace and got shit done quicker? Probably. But because of the fact that obviously loads of work, blah, 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 stuff, I promised something to her and then didn't deliver on it. Now that's shit parenting. Really shit. Because now, and she's referred to it once or twice, relatively recently, how we didn't get to do that lemonade stand. We tidied up the house to get it ready for sale. We had to put it in the skip. the sign that we painted and decorated and stuff. That's shit parenting. That makes me feel rubbish. And the thing is, team, that my relationship with Eliza, subconsciously or whatever, might have been affected negatively as a result of that. Or it will have been. Now, when you think about it from a business point of view, the temptation right now, because so many of us have lost so much opportunity, the temptation is to take everything on as much as we possibly can, right? Because we feel we have to. But the problem with that, team, is the fact that if you're not very, very careful, you're going to start falling over on those promises and falling over on those delivery KPIs that you should have in your business. It's going to cause you a lot more damage down the track than what we give it credit for. Yeah. So we've got to understand that, right? We've got to understand that we've got to be very, very aware of the fact that we don't fall into the trap, the temptation of promising things when we haven't considered whether we are going to be capable to deliver on them. Okay. It's a point I really want to hammer home, because whether it's in your relationships or at work, if you fall into this trap, and it is a very, very real trap, because of all the stuff that I mentioned before about your chemicals in your brain, starved of positivity and those positive vibes and flow, just promising something to someone makes them feel good. It's like, how many times, right? How many times over the last few weeks? Here's a question for you. How many times over the last few weeks have you promised that you're going to catch up with one of your friends at some point and then never really committed to it? Oh, yeah, look, we've definitely got to catch up when the lockdown. So, yeah, let's definitely catch up. Yeah, definitely. All right, mate, no worries. All right, I'll speak to you soon. Awesome, right. Look forward to seeing you soon. Yeah, take care, mate. Bye. How many of you have actually executed on that? Can't see there being too many in percentage terms, according to how many of those conversations have likely been made. Yeah. Got to be careful, right? Because that's just going to nullify some of those relationships, some of those friendships, some of those work relationships as well. Be aware of it. Be very, very aware of it. Just remember to breathe. When you feel yourself getting excited, just take a breath. All right? Please. And I'm talking sometimes physically. Just take a breath before you take anything on. Just that moment of a circuit breaker, just to give yourself a little bit of space to regain perspective and composure, will allow you to make better decisions as to what you are committing your time to. One of the big things that we're all feeling right now is that we are time poor. So therefore, we need to make sure that we are prioritizing in our minds the right things in order to give our time to. Really critical point now. For lots of different agents in a few different states, it's still only private inspections. Now, open inspections are on their way back, right? But stock's starting to flood through as well. So we've got to be very aware as to where we prioritize our time. So just taking a second to breathe, really, really critical. Very, very important that. And the last point I want to make is, I reckon now more than ever, it is so important to be true to yourself. When we feel we need to make up for lost ground, when we feel that there's business there and we're really concerned, might be concerned about finances or whatever the case may be, the risk is there that we perhaps do things that we wouldn't normally do, but because of everything that's gone on over the last 20 odd months, we feel we should do, right? Or we think we should do. What we've got to be very aware of there, team, is that our brains might be thinking from a safety security point of view, yep, you need that paycheck. You need that commission check. You need that management. And it's understandable, right? I'm not preaching here. I'll fall victim to it. Of course I will. I'm human. But in understanding who you are and actually having a real strong anchor within yourself as to how you go about yourself, your business, your game, your life, you are likely to still maintain a degree of clarity when you're making some of these decisions. if you're just pissing in the wind, firing shots left, right, and center, chances are there's going to be as many of those shots that are going to cause you damage than there are going to cause someone else damage. All right. I want this to be a relatively short one, team, because of the fact that it's Friday night. And I'm sure a whole bunch of you are out on the piss or whatever anyway. So I want to keep this relatively short and relatively sweet. But I think this is probably one of the most important points that I need to make, like for what's going on right now. You've really got to be true to who you are and allow those true natural DNA filters to help you make those decisions. If you work with your brain's going to kick into safety gear, which means it's going to try and just keep income coming in at all costs, because that's a safety net, it's a safety barrier, right? But just don't deny what's going on inside as well. If you're looking at something, an opportunity to make money, and something doesn't feel right, it generally means that something's not right. So therefore, you need to remember to breathe, give yourself a second to have a think and a feel, have a bit of perspective before you go taking anything on. Because otherwise, short-term pain leads to short-term gain, leads to long-term pain. All right, gang. All right, team. No, mate, Cameron, don't worry about it. I mean, in terms of my parenting, we've all made mistakes, right? And I'll keep making mistakes. But I think it's something that I'm really glad that I'm starting to become more aware of. And it's not like I'm going to be negative Nancy about what we can and can't do and whatnot. I've just got to make sure that if I'm going to promise something to my kids, I've got to deliver on it. Because otherwise, they're just going to not trust what you say down the track. It's those little things that just accumulate if you're not careful. So that's how I've learned this lesson, but it's something that we really need to take into all facets of our lives. Really, really is. Team, have an amazing weekend. I know that there's a lot of you have got lots and lots and lots of action happening over the course of the next couple of days. So bully you, go for your lives, have some fun. If you have got any on-site auctions in Melbourne, just be very, very aware as to what's going on. Okay, we've got to have we've got to be on our toes a little bit more than normal tomorrow with regards to all of the restrictions and changes and so on and so forth. But around the country and in New Zealand, if you're watching it, if you're still awake in New Zealand, you're probably not. Team, make sure you stay safe, healthy, and happy. Make sure you check in with some of your mates. Value those relationships. Value those friendships. Give yourself a score out of 10 as to what you got to be grateful for, and just remind yourself, right? That, if you've made it this far, you've done all right. You've done all right. Yeah, we'll have all made shitty decisions over the course of the last 20 odd months, but the fact that you're still in one piece, jeepers, you're doing okay. All right, and you'll keep doing okay. I think there's a quote from Winston Churchill that says, "If you find yourself in hell, keep moving through it." Yeah, the last thing you want to do is stop and then find yourself staying in hell. So if you're finding yourself in a real struggle still right now and you can't get out of that negativity, just keep moving forward. You'll eventually come out the other end. All right, team. Have an amazing weekend. Love you. Talk to you soon.